Salam alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Zoom In on the Halal Metropolis, where we record the stories of Muslims from southeastern Michigan and the important work they're doing in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. And with me this afternoon is Ahmad Abuznaid. Am I saying that right?
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Sally.
Abuznaid. I keep wanting to call you Abu Zaid. I get trapped on that later. I want you to be Abu Zaid. Anyway, sorry
Every
about that.
letter counts.
Ahmed works for the Arab American Institute, and he's been working right now he's very involved in the Census 2020 campaign, and so that's why I've invited him to talk to us today. How are you doing, Ahmed?
I'm doing fine. Thank you, Hallie. Thank you, Sally. I'm sorry. I guess I'm messing up today too. Salam alaikum to everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and so tell me how you and your family are doing.
Well, my family's not from Southeast Michigan. My mother is in Virginia and my father is in Portugal. The silver lining that I found through this pandemic is that I talk to my parents actually much more frequently. So, I mean, multiple texts and calls per day. Here in Southeast Michigan, I'm with my wife. Thankfully, we're not separated during this moment. That would be really difficult. In fact, she and I had talked about that because just before our wedding, she was in Palestine, living in Nazareth. And so I was engaging in a conversation. Can you imagine what this would be like if we were separated during this time? So with that being said, I'm with my wife. My parents are fine, and we're doing the best we can in this moment. Thank you for asking.
Well, so what's it like? I mean, how are you even able to do this census work if you're trapped at home? Because I know that one of the things people are doing is going door to door and encouraging people to fill out the form. So can you tell me what's happening?
Yeah, well, we've actually switched completely to digital organizing. I think it's something that everyone has made the decision to do already. If not, they are making that decision at this moment. Even the folks working on behalf of the census, have pulled off a lot of the field organizing plans, as to just wait and be more patient until we understand what we're dealing with here. So what that means for us is digital organizing. We're gonna utilize social media at every opportunity. So we've been utilizing Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name the platform, I'm sure we've tried it. And, I wouldn't be shocked if pretty soon we see people try TikTok in order to help people organize for the census and the vote. But we have a couple apps that we're playing around with. So we're troubleshooting some work with some apps. There's one called the Empower app that's been helping us reach out to our community members. And then there are platforms like Nation Builder. So we have our list that we've been working for years, community members that have signed up at events, signed up at the gala, signed up through petitions, and we're making sure to check in with those folks. And I will mention that, Sally, we find it very important to drive out the community to vote. Our campaign is called Yalla Count Me In. We want everyone to be counted. But when I'm reaching out to folks, the first thing I'm doing is exactly what you did in reaching out to me. How are you doing today? How's your family? What do you need? What are the resources or tools that are going to help you all wade this through? So what I found is a lot of our community members have really appreciated that. So while they've enjoyed the conversation around census and the campaigns and getting out the vote, they're just appreciating people reaching out and telling them that they care.
Yeah, and I think it's an especially important moment. I mean, I can see that if there are some people who are a little bit skeptical about the census, what does it mean? What does it mean to our community? Why should I have to identify myself as an Arab in a period of this where Arabs are being singled out and targeted, or Muslims in particular? But at the same time, in my lifetime, I don't think there's been a moment like this one where there's as much need by the society as a whole, while we share in common at least this general need to be better represented, need for the public institutions to know that we're here, to know how many people there are, to be able to provide resources to us. Those numbers really matter, both the voting numbers and the census numbers. And I don't think that there's no better way to get that message across than what we're all experiencing right now.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, when you talk about the billions of dollars that are on hand for funding, over $850 billion are going to be allocated based on this census. And we're sitting here watching, state resources be dwindled, local resources be dwindled. I mean, the fund that was just announced for small business loans was evaporated just like that. And so we know that folks are trying to get their hands on these resources. One of the most proactive ways that we can do that is by making sure we're counted in the census. And the other thing I've told people is, look, I'm going to ask you to do this, and I promise you I will not ask you to do this for another 10 years. So it's not a big ask, okay? I need 10 minutes of your time for the next 10 years. Let's make this happen and make sure we get the resources that this community deserves.
Well, I noticed when I was still out and about in the city, every time I stopped and got gas in Dearborn or in the neighborhoods of Detroit that are like in Warrendale, every time I stopped and got gas and there was one of those video messages on the gas pump, they were all telling me to fill out the census in Arabic.
Oh, that's
I
amazing.
mean, I know that you guys did your prep work ahead of time.
Wow, that's amazing. No, I mean, that's what you want. You want the community to run with the campaign. And I think, the concerns you mentioned earlier are valid. They're real. People do have, concerns with regard to intrusion of information, private information. And there is a mistrust of government, especially as you can imagine from the Arab and Muslim community. But I think, most of us have realized we're trying to make this life the best that we can in this country. And one of those opportunities is to make sure that our communities are represented on city councils, in the state legislature, in the federal, legislature, but also, through participation in the census. This is our due that we have to pay in order to make sure that not only our families, but for generations to come, people will be taken care of.
Yeah, and you're right. It does not even take 10 minutes. I was really surprised when I got my census form. I got the short form, and I wanted the long form. I wanted to tell them all about myself. But I got the short form, and I was like, boom, I was done in no time at all. So it really does take no time.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
and I've also seen that you've had a lot of support from our political leaders, from the political leaders of the Arab community. So, for example, when Rashida, she filled hers out on Census Day, and she, held it up, and she did a video of herself filling it out. So you're getting a lot of support. That's exciting. But what can you do to reach people who haven't been to your events, whose names aren't on your mailing list? Because the Arab community is huge. I'm sure you're encouraging everyone to fill out the census, not just the Arab community or the Muslim community, but what are you doing to reach people that you don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in this, pandemic era, we're again shifting completely to digital. So, the age-old organizing tactics that used to be the bread and butter, where we would just knock on the doors. I mean, you would just pick a block, and you would write up your turf and assign it to someone, and you get this block, you get that block, and you would door knock, and you'd meet people and engage in conversation and ask them to fill out the census. Well, those days are on hold for now. They may not be gone, but they're on hold for now. And so what that means again for us is, if they're not on our nation builders list, then maybe we need to use Twitter. If they're not on Twitter, there's a lot of folks on Facebook. If they're not on Facebook, they might be on Instagram. And guess what? Let's not forget that, a lot of our community members love WhatsApp. Let's utilize those WhatsApp groups, not just the family groups, the community groups. I mean, so much information is circulated through those groups. I mean, I'm in tons of groups where I get the active COVID count for Dearborn and Michigan daily. I get the latest on resources, local and statewide. And so people are staying connected. We just have to find the mechanisms to reach out to them. And there's no shortage of opportunities with this technological era we're in. It's been pretty effective. I will say though, I miss the bread and butter. I miss, getting out into a community and engaging with people in person. I miss the door knocking. I miss those conversations with the khalto and the ammo and the sitto and the jiddo who are, needing a little bit of assistance in understanding what the census is about. Thankfully, I mean, this is a good moment to mention that AAI on our website has everything translated for Yalla Count Me in English and Arabic. So you're not only talking about, the one pagers and the infographics, but you're also talking about a hotline, where folks can call in and ask, all the questions they have about the census. And I'm actually going to read off the number, for those who are going to listen in and wonder later what that number was. So if you give me 1 second, actually, if you have something else while I pull that up.
Well, so what I can do is I can just put a link. If you send it to me, I'll put it, we have like a brief introduction to these, which we're posting. I'll put the number in that brief introduction. So just send me the link to it. Send me the link to it. Well, I do have just one more question for you. We're kind of running short of time, but I did want to ask about what you're seeing in terms of, so you're like, Yalla vote, fill out the census, but then once that's out of the way, you're going to switch really quickly to this national election we have coming up this year. And I'm just wondering what you're seeing ahead, what your crystal ball is telling you.
Yeah. Well, My suspicion is that the energy is really low right now, and I mean, that was the case in some states as far as it relates to the turnout for primaries. But now we have this huge lull where, people are worried about more pertinent things, and it's not that elections aren't a priority. I mean, in fact, you could argue they're more of a priority now because of the situation we're in. It's just that people have to prioritize their day-to-day needs, and so it may be, can I pay for the lights, can I pay for my heating right now? Can I put food on the table? And so I think what we're going to need to do is really focus on re-energizing folks around this election. And I got to be honest, we're going to need some help from the candidates too. We're going to need, the folks from the campaigns to really be out there and pushing for the people's vote. They need to be earning these folks' vote at this moment. And I think we're going to need to do our best as nonprofits, as community organizers, as foundations, as communities, period, to just get the base excited. We know so much is at stake. It may seem like it's so distant because of this pandemic that we're dealing with right now, but November is going to creep up just like that. It's just a couple months away, and we all have to be counted in that election as well.
And one thing I want to encourage people to do is you can register to be on the permanent absentee ballot roll, so that the ballots will be mailed to your house, and you can in effect vote from home. You can do mail ballot, and I really want to encourage people to do that because it's easy to do, and it'll save you if if people are going to the polls, you won't get sick like the people in Wisconsin are getting sick now, the ones who actually went and voted in the primary. So you'll be safe if we're still in house stay-at-home orders at that time. But also, it's just a lot more convenient. You'll get your ballot way ahead of time. You can fill it out whenever you want, as long as you get it in the mail by election day. So there's an opportunity for us all to vote. And of course, yeah, every election is important. I think we learned 4 years ago how important elections really are. So,
Yeah,
I thank you for all the work you're doing on behalf of the community, Ahmed.
and
And thank you.
thank you for mentioning those absentee ballots. That's a great point. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you for joining me this afternoon. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you for having me,
Stay healthy, and say hi to your wife for me.
Will do. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.